roles. So you're an advanced force, and you're not just there to mark drop zones or helicopter landing sites now, or landing zones. You're also there to perform.
What made you want to join the Paratrooper Regiment?
All I wanted to do since I was about 7 years old was be a paratrooper. That was it. I didn't want to just join the army. I wanted to be a paratrooper. I think it may have been a result of some of the films I watched growing up. Things like The Eagles Landed and The Wild Geese.
Yeah.
Films like that. And also reading the commando books with pictures of, comic strips of guys jumping out of aeroplanes and fighting the enemy and stuff. But also, I wanted to be the best I could be.
Yeah.
So I wanted to join the regiment that was hardest to get in, that was the best out there. And actually, when I was 11 years old, they had the Paris series on TV. And I watched that, and it kind of scared the crap out of me because it showed how tough it was.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I still thought, yeah, that's what I want to do. And the Falklands as well was at the same time, 1982. Yeah. And a lot of the battles there were fought by 2 and 3 para, and obviously they performed incredibly well out there, and that inspired me as well. So P Company originally was just done in Aldershot, so they did a 3-day P Company that all the events were here, and this is one of the central points right here. This is Flagstaff Hill. I think this is about the 5 mile, about the halfway point of the 10 miler. This was the first water stop they did, or we did, and it was all performed around this area.
Awesome. No, brilliant. You mentioned Pathfinders. Obviously, your channel is called Prepared Pathfinder. For people who don't know, what is a Pathfinder? Okay,
so Pathfinders were formed in World War II. There was 2 companies, 21st Company, 22nd Independent Companies. They were assigned to each of the airborne divisions, and their role was to literally jump in ahead of the main force, secure a drop zone, and then mark the drop zone for the main force jumping in. Once everyone else had dropped in, they were then given secondary tasks to perform after that. Since the Second World War, the role has evolved a little bit, and it's more like it's kind of like a special forces role. So you're an advanced force, and you're not just there to mark drop zones or helicopter landing sites now, or landing zones. You're also there to perform raids, ambushes, targeting high value targets, reconnaissance, so information gathering, that sort of thing. So you work in small teams, normally a 6-man team or multiples of 6 depending on what's going on, and you go ahead of everyone else, like say information gathering, and then carrying out strikes and ambushes and things like that.
In preparing for this interview, I read the book by Steve Heaney and Damien Lewis called Ex-Platoon, in which he describes the Pathfinder starting all the sort of the black economy in the mid-80s, no budget, no kit, stuff like that. So by the time you joined, well, first of all, did you know Steve Heaney? And second of all, did that culture of sort of black economy and scrounging your own kit, did that still exist?
So Steve Heaney I know really, really well.
All right.
He was a senior full corporal in a platoon when I first joined in 1995. He'd been there for a few years, and he was one of the main DS on the Cadre when I did the Cadre, and he was a very, very professional, very fit, good guy, great soldier. And he used to take some of the tabs that we get thrashed around this area, this very area we're on now, 8 milers and 10 milers and stuff like that, before we went down to Brecon for the main part of the Pathfinder selection. Yeah. So I know Steve very well. Like I say, great soldier, really good guy.
Great book as well. I'll put a
he's written 2 actually. So
say again?
He's written 2 books.
Oh, is he? Okay.
Yeah. He's written one called Ex-Platoon. I think I can't remember, Operation Certain Death, I think he called it, the second.
Now you mention it, I'll put the cover up there.
And when I first joined the PF, we were still on the black economy as it's known, which meant we weren't formally established. So we were in existence, but on paper we weren't. So all the guys that made up that unit were borrowed off the strengths of other units, and all the weapons, all the vehicles, all the equipment was borrowed from other units.
Yes.
You wouldn't get away with it nowadays, but back then it kind of worked.
Yes.
And it wasn't until 1997 that we got formally established, and I was in a platoon when that happened actually.
Interesting. When we chatted a bit earlier, you sort of went in and out of Pathfinders. How did that work?
Okay, so I did 4 years from 95 until end of 99. Then I went to the Red Devils for 3 years. Okay. And basically just enjoyed my life for 3 years, going skydiving and stuff all around the world, and jumping into events and stuff like that. I then came back to the Pathfinders specifically because we knew Iraq was coming up. Right. So there was going to be a proper, wartime deployment, and I thought there's no way I'm going to miss out on this. So I came back to the Pathfinders specifically because of that. I then did another 5 years in a platoon where we went to Afghanistan 2006, which we were talking around, and then lots of other courses and deployments and things like that, exercises all around the world. I then went to a thing called JAD2, Joint Aerial Delivery Trials and Evaluation Unit,
Right.
which is where it's got different sections within it, but one of them is the Airborne Trials section. And I was there for 2.5 years doing trials and development of military parachute systems. So I finished that job for 2.5 years and then came back to the Pathfinders as a platoon sergeant for the sort of latter part of my career. And then I went back to Afghanistan in 2010 during that period.
Fantastic. You also mentioned when we had a chat in the preparation for this, you served some time in Patrols Platoon as well. What is sort of the difference in the roles of Patrols versus Pathfinder?
Yeah, so I was in One Para Patrols from, it actually got re-established in January 1994. So I was there for the best part of 2 years before I then went to Pathfinders. And there is a fair bit of crossover in the roles actually, but the main difference really is Patrols Platoon they serve the battalion.
Yes.
So they're the reconnaissance unit for One Para, whereas Pathfinders they can be tasked, well, they are for the brigades, 16 brigade as it is now, but they can be tasked by other parts of the military. So they're more on par with like an SF type tasking.
Yes,
so they're much longer range, and they've got more capabilities, things like your Halo and Hey-Ho, things like that, whereas the patrols are just relatively short range recce, so they'd be maybe 20 to 30 kilometers in front of a unit, whereas the Pathfinders could be in another continent, or well in advance of any unit, and they could be operating at what's called at reach with very little or no support whatsoever.
Now, if you look at standard infantry units like the rifles, I guess the guards, they will have recce capability. Is Patrols then more akin to recce?
It's exactly the same. Just I think it's a historical thing from the parachute regiment. They call their recce platoons Patrols Platoons, whereas in other regiments they'll call them a recce platoon. It's the same sort of thing, but obviously it then the unit that they operate to and with will reflect on how they operate. So in a parachute regiment, Patrols Platoon, they tend to work a little bit more, again, at reach, maybe at further distance with less support, whereas maybe a mechanised recce unit would be fairly close with vehicles and things like that. Yeah, but very similar roles as well. With other
and there's sort of selection to serve in recce, I would imagine.
So we did the Patrols Cadre in January in Sennybridge in 1994, and that was basically the Pathfinder Cadre without the hills phase. Exactly the same as the Pathfinder Cadre, and it was incredibly tough. And we basically was working in very, very tough conditions in January in Sennybridge for a month, and the Cadre was actually run by the Pathfinders. So we had very close ties with the Pathfinders at the time, and a lot of us actually ended up coming across to the Pathfinders later on. And we also, at the end of that 4 weeks, did what's now known as SERE as well. So the full SERE level C course, which is escape and evasion and survival, and then resistance to interrogation at the end. So we did a full session of that as well, the actual Pathfinder one as well.
Amazing. And to tie that back, you're hosting a SERE course in August.
We are, we're doing an escape and evasion course.
For anyone watching who wants to get a bit of a taste of that, for useful skills. Is it 40 hours then, or how long is it?
So that one there, the one I'll be running, will be 2.5 days, basically.
Okay.
So Friday evening over to Sunday.
What does Pathfinder Cadre select for over and above P Company?
Yeah, so there are similar parts to it, but P Company is literally a fitness event. It's just fitness. I mean, obviously you've got the Trainasium, which is an aerial confidence course, but it is all just fitness based. Whereas the Pathfinder course, there's a lot of fitness on it, but it's not just fitness. So during the Cadre, we'll deploy into Sennybridge training area, and you're tested on your soldiering skills at very high level as well. So everything you're going to be doing is going to be on hard routine. So that is no cooking, no talking. It's all hand signals, unless you absolutely have to say anything. Always operating with at least, most of your weapons operational at one point, so only one weapon being cleaned at any time, only one person changing the socks at any time, pissing in bottles, shitting in bags, all that sort of nice stuff. And the idea of hard routine is that you're creating less of a signature that the enemy can detect you when you're operating in close proximity to the enemy. So on exercise in Brecon in November, freezing cold, not being able to make a cup of tea is not nice, but it's very high level soldiering skills, and you're being tested constantly. So there's always going to be a DS there watching you, So if you try and take a shortcut or if you make a mistake, they're going to spot you straight away. So it's not just a fitness test, it's also high-level soldiering testing as well.
Yeah. But no, that's great. So it's operating in a high threat level, non-permissive environment.
Yeah.
Where you need to live.
So if you're working in advance of your own troops,
Yeah.
in close proximity to the enemy, you want to do everything you can to not be detected, so being less likely to be detected. So like I say, no talking unless you absolutely have to, just hand signals, eating cold rations, not cooking anything, not creating any smell or noise, and being ready to go at all times.
Yeah.